Very honored to have back on the Freedom Side Live Abubaker Abed, a Palestinian journalist and commentator in Gaza. He's been on the show many times and he's back with us now. Abubaker, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It's an honor to join you.
I really appreciate you making the time. I know it's late there, and just before we were recording, we were talking about the electricity situation, which is pretty dire among much of the rest of the situation, and we're going to get to that. But before I ask you about the conditions right now in Gaza, I wanted to ask you to comment on Trump's statement that's been making headlines that we saw, where he was calling, saying that this is a last warning for Hamas to release all Israeli prisoners held in Gaza, and saying its leaders have to leave the Gaza Strip. Just a crazy rant. And this came after news that the Americans were actually negotiating with Hamas directly behind the scenes. Away from the Israelis, and also comes off the back of Trump trying to ethnically cleanse Gaza. So with all this insanity coming from this American administration, I'm just curious your thoughts.
I think for me personally, I don't care about what he's saying because he said it last time and nothing has happened. We've all seen that. Trump is trying to just threaten not only Hamas, and there's nothing political here, but also the Palestinian people overall. But he doesn't know how strong we are in the face of all of this, how united and steadfast against all those horrors. And we've been enduring much horror during the last 16 or 15 months, bombings, killings, mass murder, and starvation, as well as freezing to death, and all these horrific circumstances. And we did not surrender. Trump has to know when someone is indigenous to the land, they cannot leave because their heart is just planted where they are. And for me personally, like it's been 22 years here in Gaza, and I know Gaza is very much devastated, and I know the destruction is literally everywhere, and the skyline view of Gaza is no longer the same. I understand and I realize that, but for me as a young man, I see my future here in Gaza. I see that Gaza needs me, and I need to get everything to Gaza because Gaza is just the first step that we can have until the liberation. And that's why people know that any ethnic cleansing plans or starvation schemes or any policies made against them, they cannot let them succeed or pay off on the ground because they know that they don't have any places to go except Gaza. Gaza, every letter of it means a lot to people here. They know, even the people who escaped the war for out of necessity 1 year, when I talk to them, they tell me, they really, really tell me that we've made a very, very huge mistake that we left Gaza. Weren't it for a very huge or out of a huge necessity, we wouldn't leave. But already we cannot really feel calm, cannot really feel that much sense of tranquility, and no sense of joy and happiness can flood through us, although they are not living in a demolition site, in a wasteland. So Gaza, that's just can tell you what Gaza means for the population. So for me, for the young generations, for the old generations, and for every single one, they want either those who have lost their homes or the others who don't know where to go after all that happened to them and the unimaginable losses that they have sustained. They know that they can build another future inside the territory, and Gaza means the world to them. Like they have their world in Gaza. There is another world, and their world is Gaza. So you cannot, whatever you do and whatever ultimatums you make, either Trump or any other occupying corrupt power around the world, they cannot separate those people, Palestinians, from Gaza, because this is just like taking the soul out of someone's body. And this is, of course, impossible.
I mean, I also wanted to ask you, Abubaker, about the fact that, the Israelis are once again imposing a cutting off of all aid to Gaza, which is, in a perilous circumstance right now, given the last year and a half of genocide. And of course, the U.S. administration and even the Europeans are justifying this blatant violation of international law, which clearly doesn't mean much anymore. And Gaza, right now, after enduring more than a year and a half of genocide, is in a difficult situation on the ground where I know we've seen news stories about babies in Gaza freezing to death because of the temperatures, which are quite cold. And I know that you have similar weather to me here in Beirut. But the difference is, here I do have electricity much of the day and you don't. So we're able to heat our homes here. And over in Gaza, you're not able to. You've endured the destruction of basically all the hospitals to some degree. And of course, there's still shortages because of the siege that was imposed all this time. So I'm curious if you can give us an idea in the midst of Israel once again blocking all humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. What is the situation like on the ground in Gaza? Obviously, there is a ceasefire in place, and Israel's violating it every single day. But the bombs aren't falling like they were a couple months ago. So that must be a nice, break. But at the same time, what's it like around you right now?
I think it's very significant, Tanya, to tell you at first that there's quite a misconception about Palestinians. We are never hungry. We're never hungry. We never ask people to give us aid. We never asked you to help us during this difficult time just to give us aid or help us eat or train. That's never been our aim. What people have to understand is that you have to stand us against this total occupation. This is the very, very essential thing and the monumentally essential priority that everyone has to put in their mind. Because we know, like, if you are going to help me endure the pain, then what do I have to do with that? You are just helping me endure the pain. Until when I'm going to endure all this pain? Until when they will continue? So this is part of the question. What I need from you is to make sure that you are going to stand with me to end and eradicate this occupation, this really occupation, which not only invades Gaza, no, it also invades Lebanon, also invades Syria and other parts and other parts of the world. People have to understand that. And even the American people themselves, Rania, they are mentally occupied, in my opinion, when they see that the government is just issuing orders and executive orders under the supervision of the Israeli lobby. That itself is a huge occupation than being physically occupied. In fact, I'm very happy that I'm physically occupied rather than just mentally. I don't have the latitude to say what I want. And we saw Trump saying, talking about the free speech and in his universities or in the US universities, and how terrible is that? So the conception that has to be put up here is that people have to be mentally free. People have to have the latitude to say and to have their everything. Because I'm doing personally, if I were an American and I would see my government just like as a dog for the Israelis, I would be very ashamed of myself. How can that be? And I am obliged to pay for the Israeli genocide. That is incredibly insane. When you look at people and how people are now coping with almost nothing in their hands, when you see children still barefoot and walking every single day kilometers to get food and water, they have absolutely aged so old and they have absolutely they are getting so premature because of the circumstances they have been through. What does it mean for a child who's 3 years old standing before a makeshift stall to provide his family or the family with the source of living? We're seeing children of only 5 or 4 years old who should have been at school now going in markets and traveling kilometers from a city to another to get or obtain some water, or and they are still jostling before free food distribution centers to get food. That kind of dehumanization hasn't only been imposed by Israel, Rania. People have to understand that because the complicity and the silence of the Arab world in particular, and the entirety of the world, that 9 billion people cannot really get one bottle of water into Gaza. They cannot really now, 5 days into the Israeli blockade of the crossing, of the two crossings. No one in the world, no power in the world can pressure Israel and force it to reopen the crossings. That is absolutely shame. It's a big, big shame. How can 9 billion people cannot help 2 million people stranded in an open air prison? And now it's not a prison. We are, because we have been kept hostage, by the way, for years, for 17 years. And now we're just hostages inside the cell, inside a very tiny cell. It's not like the other one, the pre-war one before October the 7th. People have to realize this fact because it's absolutely inconceivable what we have been fighting for. What is the goal of the humanity when the whole humanity and the international humanitarian organizations are silent on the extermination and the starvation of a whole population of 2 million people, half of which is children, Rania? What have they got to do with this war? When you are someone abroad and your government is helping Israel and they are the staunchest allies of Israel, helping Israel finalize or expedite its genocide in Gaza, then what would you feel? It's completely insane. People, Rania, people have to do more, especially Americans. It's not just about that you are going out to protest in the streets. I appreciate that as a Palestinian, to be honest. But at the same time, you can stop your life. You can go on a global strike. You can stop your work and stop all that you do. You cannot really watch over a government like giving Gaza to another city or to another country. It's not a country; it's a colonial project, of course. And you are just staying silent. What if, for me, one, if I were an American and my government is given another piece of land to another country, I would absolutely, and I'm saying from here, I would absolutely go to the president and will not rest and will not eat and will go on a global strike until this decision can be cancelled. So this is what people have to understand. You have to stand with us against this horrific, heinous act of genocide and of ethnic cleansing. Other than that, what we do is just very meager and cannot help the population. Rania, it's enough of words. We need now actions on the ground because now we are on the at the juncture of a very, very, very critical train of events that will lead either to the liberation of Palestine or the occupation of the entire world. We have to be aware of that. And for me, I think if it's not today, if this is going to collapse nowadays, tomorrow we will carry that home, we will carry that legacy and the legacy of our patience and of our unity and backbone and spine that we've been showing. We will carry that with us until we can get every landscape inside occupied Palestine free, as well as Lebanon, as well as Syria. And I remind you from here, even if Palestine is free and a part of land in Syria or Lebanon is not free, we're going to fight as Palestinians, although we have been through a lot, until we can make sure the Lebanese and the Syrians will be free as well. So this is our main goal that we should be united to achieve.
Well, Abubaker Abed, Palestinian journalist in Gaza. I also forgot to say Ramadan Kareem. We're just a few days into Ramadan.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
well, thank you so much for joining us and breaking all this down. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're so welcome. It was really amazing to talk to you. And thank you for all the work you do.